One of the first times we realize the true ruthlessness of Gustavo Fring is in the series of flashbacks set in Mexico. In one of his most famous moments, Gus poisons an entire party of cartel members using a bottle of bad tequila. This plan is actually set up much earlier in the show. During Gustavo and Don Eladio's first meeting, Gus clearly notes Eladio's affinity for tequila and supposedly reasons that he might be blinded by the offer of a great bottle. He was right. Closer to the end of the series, Jesse Pinkman was haunted by the hit Walt ordered him to carry out and the memory of his victim, Gale. Gale, the cheerful chemist who never really bothered anybody, remains on Jesse's mind long before his demise, and twice the series reminds us of him. First, when Jesse is playing a video game, Gale can clearly be seen written backwards on a wall. Later still, the sign for Lydia's company Madrigal appears to spell another backwards Gale. Gale lives on. Shine on, you crazy diamond. But Jane's demise wasn't the only thing that was foreshadowed. Walt's part in it is also set up. Early in the season, Skyler is seen turning her baby daughter Holly on her side to prevent the fate that befalls Jane later on. Not only does this foreshadow Walt's complicity in what happens to Jane, but it brings up an interesting contrast between Walt and Skyler. Walt's unwillingness to save Jane is like an extension of his bad parenting, while Skyler actually cares about the well-being of her family. Jane's demise is one of the most tragic moments on the entire show. Even if you believe that Jane would prevent Jesse from beating his addiction as Walt did, she did not deserve to choke on her own vomit. But Jane's shocking death may seem less shocking if you watch the show a second time. It was heavily foreshadowed multiple times throughout the second season. First, when Jane turns Jesse on his side to prevent him from vomiting, then it's referenced in a flashback when she jokes about vomiting her mouth a little bit. Dark stuff. Speaking of background details in the set decoration, a more subtle Easter egg actually appears on the floor of the hospital set seen throughout the show. If you look at the tiles of the floor on the hospital, you can make out a familiar pattern. The green tiles mimic the tiles from the opening of the show, with 2 diagonal green panels and 2 clear ones. It's amazing to think that this level of detail went into every level of production. Saul Goodman is a fan-favorite character from Breaking Bad.
Dr. Phil, my daddy's a drug dealer, and my mommy turned him in.
And turned out to have enough depth to carry his own show, the excellent and underrated Better Call Saul. His show is named for the slogan of Saul's legal practice, which begins to represent Walt and Jesse in the second season. But before Saul ever appears on screen, his arrival is hinted at when Jesse's friend Badger has a discussion with a friend on a bench. Behind them, unnoticeable at the time, is Saul's image. The next one is a small one, but we think it's worth mentioning. Walter Jr., Walt's son, isn't seen a lot on the show, especially in later seasons. When he is seen, he's usually at breakfast, and much of his personality has to be extrapolated from there.
I want real bacon, not this fake crap.
In an internet-famous scene from the second season, Junior complains to his mother about her buying the wrong cereal. She bought Raisin Bran when he wants Raisin Bran Crunch.
It's not that hard, Mom. It says crunch on the box.
3 seasons later, Raisin Bran Crunch is seen on the breakfast table. Junior's patience finally paid off. Like many of the entries on this list, this observation can be traced back to Dorkly writer Tristan Cooper, who is truly an eagle-eyed viewer. Walter White's arc over the course of Breaking Bad is legendary. Watching a regular guy become a vicious drug kingpin is fascinating, but it's also kind of sad. Over 5 seasons, you see a nice family guy turn into a dark and terrifying figure. This change in Walt's morality is mirrored in his wardrobe as Walt wears darker and darker tones throughout the series. The show also famously had colors closely associated with different characters, like Marie with purple, and associated certain colors with certain themes, like pink and death. Speaking of iconic, Gustavo Fring is one of TV's great villains, and his demise remains one of the most memorable moments of the entire show. After being blown up by his old rival Hector Salamancar, Gus calmly walks away, only to reveal that he's missing half of his head. This moment is actually foreshadowed, though it's actually tucked into another piece of foreshadowing. Before the plane collision over Walter's house, we see ghastly images of fallen debris, including a bear with half of its face missing, just like Gus. That's twice the foreshadowing at half the price.
You're goddamn right.
Breaking Bad has what's widely considered to be an iconic opening. Walter White, who would go on to build an empire as the criminal mastermind Heisenberg, walks in a pantsless panic through the desert. Everyone remembers this scene, but have you ever wondered what happened to those pants? No? Well, the season 5 episode Ozymandias answers that question anyway. As Walter pushes a barrel through the desert, he passes a pair of filthy, ancient pants lying in the sand. It's a great Easter egg and a reminder of how far he's come.